All right, today we're gonna pop the hood, or, the bonnet, and really figure out what's going on under there. We're gonna break down how cars actually work.
You know that feeling, right? You're standing there, someone's going on and on about their V8 or their new turbo, and you're just nodding. Yep. Well, guess what? After this, you're going to know exactly what they're talking about. This one's for you. Okay, let's dive right in. We're starting with the heart of the car, the engine. And believe it or not, it all starts with just a big, heavy chunk of metal.
So this is the engine block. Just think of it like a big solid frame, right? And it has these perfectly round holes drilled into it. We call those cylinders. And really, the number of cylinders is a quick way to gauge how much power we're talking about. A 4-cylinder, pretty standard. A 6-cylinder gives you a bit more oomph. But an 8-cylinder, yeah, that's where you start getting into some serious muscle.
But it's not just how many cylinders, it's how they're laid out. You've got an inline engine, think straight 6, where they're all lined up in a neat little row. These are known for being super balanced and smooth. Then you've got the V engine, like a V6 or a V8. The cylinders are split into 2 rows, making that classic V shape. The big advantage here? It's way more compact, so you can cram more power into a smaller engine.
So what's actually happening inside those cylinders? Well, picture a plunger, a tough metal plunger, and we call that a piston. It's moving up and down, back and forth inside each one of those cylinders. And what's pushing it? Thousands of tiny controlled explosions every single minute. That incredible motion is what makes your car move.
Yeah, you heard that right. Explosions. An internal combustion engine is basically a machine that's designed to make fire on purpose over and over again. So, how exactly does it control all that explosive power?
It sounds totally chaotic, but it's actually a really elegant 4-step dance. It's called the 4-stroke cycle. So, step 1 is intake. The piston goes down and it sucks in a mix of air and fuel. Step 2, compression. The piston shoots back up, squeezing that mixture really, really tight. Then, a spark plug fires. That leads to step 3, power. Boom! A tiny explosion slams the piston back down. That is the moment that creates all the power. And finally, step 4, exhaust. The piston comes back up one last time, pushing all the leftover smoke and fumes out. And this whole cycle, it's happening thousands of times every minute. Wild, right?
So you've probably heard that word, right? Hemi. People love to talk about it. Well, it's actually pretty simple. It's all about the shape of the combustion chamber, that little space at the top of the cylinder where the explosion happens. In a Hemi, that space is shaped like a hemisphere. You know, a dome. And that dome shape just helps the fuel and air burn a little bit better, a little more efficiently. So now you know. When someone brags about their Hemi, they're talking about dome-shaped combustion chambers.
Okay, but how does the fuel even get into the cylinder in the first place? Well, in modern cars, we use something called fuel injectors. Think of them as tiny, super precise spray bottles, just misting the perfect amount of gasoline into the air. Now, if you go back in time, older cars had a carburetor. It was this clunky mechanical thing that kind of just let the engine suck air through it to mix with the fuel. Fuel injectors are way, way more efficient, which is why you don't really see carburetors anymore.
So what if you want more power? Well, the secret is simple. Just add more air. And that is the brilliant idea behind a turbocharger, or a turbo. It's actually a super clever bit of recycling. It takes the hot exhaust gas that's already leaving the engine and uses that force to spin a tiny fan, a turbine. That turbine is connected to another fan that sucks in fresh air from the outside and literally shoves it into the engine. It's like blowing on a campfire to make the flames bigger. More air means a bigger boom, and a bigger boom means more power.
And speaking of power, what you're looking at here, this number, this is where things just get insane. We're talking over $800,000. And that's not for the car. That's for the engine of a Bugatti. It's a W16 quad turbo. That's basically like taking 2 V8 engines and mashing them together and then strapping 4 turbos to it. It is, without a doubt, an absolute marvel of engineering.
Okay, so the engine's making all this incredible explosive power. But how do we get that power from the engine to the wheels to actually make the car go? Well, that's the job of the transmission.
Honestly, the best way to think about a transmission is to think about the gears on a bicycle, right? When you're starting off or trying to climb a steep hill, you put it in a low gear. It's really easy to pedal, but you're not going very fast. Then, once you're on a flat road and cruising along, you shift up to a high gear. It's harder to get started in that gear, but you can go super fast without pedaling like a maniac. A car's transmission, it does exactly that, but for the engine.
Now, you've got a couple main types.
There's the classic manual transmission, with a set of actual gears that the driver shifts between. But a lot of modern cars have what's called a CVT, a continuously variable transmission. Instead of a bunch of gears, it uses this really cool system with 2 cones and a belt. The cones can slide closer or further apart, which smoothly changes the gear ratio. This means there are no shifts at all. It's just one seamless, smooth acceleration. It's really efficient, but yeah, some people do miss that feeling of a car shifting through the gears.
Okay, here's another really brilliant piece of engineering that you probably never think about. When you take a turn, think about it. The wheel on the outside of the turn has to travel a longer path than the wheel on the inside, so it needs to spin faster. The differential is this little box of gears that makes that possible. It allows the left and right wheels to spin at different speeds. I mean, the clue is right there in the name. Without it, turning would be a jerky, tire-squealing mess.
All right, so an engine makes a ton of power, but it also makes a ton of heat, a lot of noise, and a bunch of nasty waste. Plus, the car needs electricity to work, so let's look at all the life support systems that keep this thing running.
First up, the exhaust system. This thing handles all the junk coming out of the engine. It's got 2 really important parts. You've got the catalytic converter. That's a filter that cleans up the toxic stuff in the exhaust before it goes out into the air. And then you have the muffler. Its job is pretty simple. It's a silencer, designed to take that deafening roar from the engine and quiet it down to a reasonable level.
You know, a car is basically its own little power plant, and the heart of that is the alternator. It's a small generator that's connected to the engine by a belt. So as the engine is spinning, it's also spinning the alternator, which generates electricity. That electricity keeps the battery charged up and powers everything: your lights, your radio, your phone charger, all of it.
Remember all those thousands of explosions? Well, they make the engine incredibly, incredibly hot. The cooling system is what stops it from literally melting down. A liquid called coolant or antifreeze circulates through the engine, soaking up all that heat. Then it travels up to the radiator at the very front of the car. Air blows through the radiator's fins, cooling the liquid down before it cycles back to the engine. A little part called the thermostat acts like a bouncer, only letting the coolant go to the radiator when it gets hot enough. And here's a cool little tidbit: the heat for your car's heater, that's just borrowing some of that hot coolant to warm up the air in the cabin.
Okay, so we've made power, we've sent it to the wheels, and we've kept the whole thing from catching on fire. So, how do we actually drive it? Let's talk about control. Trying to turn the wheels of a heavy car without any help would be a serious arm workout. That's why we have power steering. It's a hydraulic system. Basically, there's a pump that's run by the engine, and it pressurizes a fluid. When you turn the steering wheel, that high-pressure fluid does most of the heavy lifting for you, making it super easy to steer. And that's exactly why, if your engine ever cuts out while you're driving, the steering wheel suddenly feels like it's stuck in concrete. The pump lost its power.
Of course, stopping is probably even more important than going. And a car's brakes actually work a lot like the brakes on a bike. Attached to the wheel is a big metal disc called rotor, and straddling that rotor is a big clamp called a caliper. Inside the caliper are the brake pads. When you step on the brake pedal, the caliper squeezes those pads onto the spinning rotor. That creates a massive amount of friction, and that's what brings a couple of tons of metal to a screeching halt. Wow, okay, we have covered a lot of ground, from the engine block all the way to the brake pads. So think back to that conversation at the beginning. When you hear those car terms now, do they still sound like a totally different language?
Think about it. You now know what an engine block is. You know what a piston does. You know a Hemi is about that dome shape, and a turbo is all about ramming more air into the engine. You get that a CVT is for a smooth ride. You know what a differential does when you turn, how an alternator makes power, what a catalytic converter cleans, and what a caliper squeezes. So, are you going to go open your own mechanic shop tomorrow? Probably not. But hey, are you basically a car person now? Yeah, I think you are.